Okay, we are live, you guys. Okay, welcome to 90 Days of Greatness version 2.0. We are on Hangout number, what are we on now? 4? No, I think we're on 5. We're on Hangout number 5, week number 5 in our 13-week and 90-day program that we have going on here. And so this is week 2 of new consultant training. We started with personal business. We did a review of all 6 systems that build a strong organization. Then we dug into new consultant systems. Last week, we're going to do it again this week and spend the entire hangout on new consultant systems. And then we'll be moving through the other 4 systems that we'll have left. So let's get started because I've got a lot for you today. And so let's jump right in. And I want to share some thoughts on bringing in STAR inventories. Okay, so we talked last week about the welcome orientation conversation and what that looks like and an outline for that. And so how I end my welcome orientation conversations is by talking about inventory options for that specific new consultant based on her goals, her life, her financial situation. We are wanting to discover and explore what is her best inventory option. Okay, so let me share some thoughts because there's a lot of thoughts I have about this and just a lot of things that we need to consider to really serve our people the best that we can. Okay. Is a full store appropriate for everyone? My short answer to that is no, not initially. I don't believe that it is. And I think it's more important to consider that consultant, her contacts, her life, her financial situation. Okay. Now, I do believe once a consultant comes in and develops skills and starts building a customer base, that it's absolutely appropriate, if not even necessary, to build to a full inventory because of the benefits of that. But I don't believe personally that it's appropriate for everyone to start with a full inventory. And looking back on my directorship very early on, I made some mistakes with that, just assuming everybody needed everything on hand. Okay. And so is it ever appropriate to recommend less than a full store inventory? And I think it is appropriate for people to start with less than that. But here's the thing. We want to have a lot of discernment with this and understand any possible limiting beliefs you may have connected with bringing in STAR inventories. Let's just talk about the 2 extremes. One extreme would be just pushing everyone to have a full store, maybe not considering her life or financial situation enough, and maybe going too hard and pushing too hard on a larger inventory. Okay, that's one extreme. The other extreme to that is just bringing everyone in at 600 because it's comfortable for you and for her. Or maybe just talking about a 225 and really not equipping people with adequate product on hand out of some fear and limiting beliefs. Okay, so those are the 2 extremes, and we want to bring it to the middle. And I think the best place to be in the middle is using wisdom and discernment and coaching and mentorship and leadership to support that individual consultant in making her best decision for her life, for her financial situation. Okay, so that's the goal. We want to get there. But I see both extremes, you guys, but I see this extreme a little bit more than I see this extreme. I see people not really adequately coaching a new consultant to come in with inventory out of fear and limiting beliefs of what has happened in the past. Okay. So maybe you started with inventory, didn't manage your money well, and got into a financial mess, or were financially challenged because of your inventory choices or the way you did or did not manage your money and income after that. And so you are projecting that experience onto new people. You're like, oh, I don't want her to go through that. So you may consciously or subconsciously not be bringing in larger inventories because you may have had a negative experience. Okay. Maybe you've experienced returns. Maybe somebody's ordered a large inventory and has returned it to the company, and that impacted your income that month. And that was a negative, heavy, icky experience. And so maybe you shy away from bringing in big inventories because of that. Maybe it's a fear of being responsible for people. You know, when people start with inventory, you as the leader, although you're not responsible for her choices and you can't control what she does with the business, and you can't ever blame yourself for her lack of success because everybody chooses and makes their own choices about what they do with this business. But there is a level of responsibility for the leader to then equip that consultant to sell that inventory and to manage her money correctly. And so maybe you just don't want that responsibility. And so you're going to bring in lower inventories to avoid that responsibility. Maybe there are no systems in place to support her to manage her money correctly, or to get her training, or to plug into a consistent weekly meeting. So there's no systems to support her. So then you're uncomfortable with her coming in with inventory, because then what happens to her after that? And again, I think it connects to just being afraid to take responsibility for that choice, because then there's no systems to walk her through being successful at building her business. Maybe you're holding back because then that means you've got to have a debut for her. And I'm being serious, you guys. I think it holds some people back, because if a star comes in, then you've got to add an appointment to your calendar. And it takes away from other things in your life. It takes you out of the home for the evening. That takes a lot of energy to go out there and be in front of people and support someone in having a successful launch party. And then at that launch party, you got to book all these career surveys, and then that commits you to getting on the phone with all her friends and family to support her in earning her pearls of sharing. And so by bringing in a star, you're committing a lot of your time to her. And maybe there's the fear of that level of commitment, or that level of energy that would be required after she makes that decision, you guys. So back in July, myself, Pam Shaw, and Julia Burnett sent out a Google Doc form to the whole Epic family. That's all 3 of our national areas. And we just asked questions about inventory, and connected to bringing in large inventories, and connected to supporting consultants. It was just maybe 10 or so questions connected to that topic. And the things I went over with you were the most common limiting beliefs that we got back from our sales directors about why maybe they don't bring in start inventories, or why maybe they hesitate. And so I just wanted to share those with you in case you are consciously operating with some of these limiting beliefs, or possibly more likely unconsciously operating with some of these limiting beliefs. And I hope it brought something to the light, because once we have awareness and something's brought to the light, then we can deal with it. Awareness is sometimes half the battle, sometimes more than half the battle. Because once you're aware, you're thinking these thoughts, you can adjust. You can adjust and make different choices. Okay? So yes, inventory is not for everyone. But I would guess it's for more people than maybe you think it is. Especially for the woman who's equipped and ready for success. And so an inventory package is not one size fits all. It's really based on her goals, and based on your observations of her behavior and her connectedness in her community and her readiness level and the capacity she has in her life. So I believe the leader just brings a whole lot of discernment to the table, and wisdom to the table, and effective coaching to the table, so we can serve our people the best in supporting them in making this decision. Ultimately, it's her decision. You guys, we could bring our very best and our all to the table, and she could still maybe not, in our opinion, make the best choice, but that's okay. That's okay. We're still bringing our best to the table. What she chooses to do with that is up to her. Okay. So just like, when you're doing career chats or career surveys or interviews with prospects, and somebody says it's not the right time, you as the leader and as the person sharing, you use discernment in, like, is she just saying that to avoid the question, or is she saying that out of fear, or is she saying that just to deflect, or is she really sincerely saying, hey, I want this, but not right now, and then you respect that. Okay, so you use that discernment. Like, is she saying this out of fear and she just needs to overcome that fear and not hold herself back? Or is she really saying, like, now I can't do this, but in the future I'm interested? Okay, so we use that discernment. And based on that discernment, we either ask more questions or we set a time to follow up or we continue layering her. And so we use the same discernment when talking about inventory as well. We hear what people are saying. We use our experience and our discernment to respond to what they're saying in a way to serve them and love them the best that we can. Okay. And so, how do you learn the skill of discernment and wisdom in these conversations? That's the $1,000,000 question, right? How do you get that level of discernment? And you guys, I don't know how else to tell you to increase your level of discernment and wisdom with people, except to say that you got to practice. You got to practice a lot. You got to talk to a lot of people and learn to be a good listener and learn to pick up on the tone of her voice. And if you're in person with her, her eye contact, her body language. We learn to listen with our eyes, our ears. We learn to listen to body language. We learn to understand, and we seek to understand people as we have conversation after conversation after conversation after conversation. You grow in your wisdom and your discernment when you just talk to a lot of people. And so just go out there and practice. Go out there and be willing to fail at a couple conversations. That's what I did very, very early on in my directorship, you guys. I look back on some conversations I've had and I'm like, oh my goodness, how did I make it here? How did I make it this far without knowing that or with screwing that up? But it's just a part of the journey and it's a part of the learning process. And so get out there and just be willing to maybe mess up some conversations or not be perfect at it. But with every conversation, you're growing more skilled at your discernment and your wisdom in working with, mentoring, and leading people. Okay, so the inexperienced leader simply listens to what somebody says about inventory and says, okay, let's do that. And just here's what she says and says, okay. But the experienced leader listens to what someone says and then uses wisdom and discernment and engages in a conversation that supports that consultant in making her best choice. Because possibly what she first initially said is not the choice that's going to serve her the best or serve her success the best. Okay, so here are some of my go-to questions. I just want to give you these six or so questions that I call my go-to questions. These are the ones I most commonly go to and I most commonly ask to engage in a conversation to support her. One of the first questions I'll ask when talking about inventory, and I believe I went over this last week, is I just say, well, hey, if money were no object, what package are you most drawn to? I just kind of want to hear what she's thinking and hear what's going on in her mind. Okay, it taking money off the table. If money were no object, if money were off the table, which one were you most drawn to? I also ask if you were, let's say if you were to finance an inventory package, if that's a decision that you decide to make, what options do you have? Okay, so those are just exploring questions to kind of hear where her mind is at, but not asking her to toe the line and make a decision. We're not asking her what inventory package are you getting or what financing option are you using. We're just saying if you were to do that, what's going on in your mind? What kind of options do you think you have? Okay. Here's some other go-to questions, especially if she is based on your wisdom and discernment, maybe not making a decision that might serve her best, depending on her goals. I often start the conversation with, well, hey, do you mind if I ask a question? Or do you mind if I share some thoughts? Okay, so just asking for permission to share your thoughts, you guys, versus launching right into your thoughts. That one little line of, do you mind if I share some thoughts? Walls down. And it builds trust because you're asking permission and allowing her to say, yeah, go ahead, share some thoughts. Now you could say the exact same thing you were gonna say if you didn't ask permission. But there's something about that permission that honors people. And when people feel honored, their walls go down, their trust level goes up, and then they hear you. They hear what you're saying. If they don't feel honored and they just feel like you're trying to tell them what to do or trying to get them to do something they don't want to do, man, that wall goes up and they don't hear you anymore. You could have the most eloquent words and illustrations and stories about inventory and how it could benefit her, but if she doesn't hear you, it doesn't matter how good your words are. But if she's trusting you and she's open and she's hearing you, you could have maybe not the best script or not the best wording or not the most eloquent uh, thoughts to share, but she's hearing you. She's hearing you and she's trusting you. Okay. Um, Here's some other go-to questions. What is it that draws you to that level? Okay, so she says, I've kind of been thinking 600 or 1200 or 2400. Like, what draws you to that level? What made you choose that one? Okay, again, you're just exploring her thoughts. Let's say you got a ready right now girl who really wants something out of this business, has the capacity to commit the time. She's been successful in something else. Just the things that we look for are all aligning. And then she says like, oh, I just want to get active or just want to start with the 600. Sometimes I'll ask her, I'm like, well, how would you feel? How would you feel if I recommended a different level? Okay, again, you're asking for permission. It opens people up to trust you. Here's another question. Would you be open to hearing my professional perspective based on what I've observed with others who have similar goals? Okay. Would you be open to hearing my professional perspective based on what I've observed with other people who have similar goals as you do? Here's another one. This is the last one I'll share with you guys. Would you be open to me sharing my concerns about you coming in with that level? Okay, so if you have some real concerns about her doing that, would you be open to me sharing some concerns I have about you coming in at that level? All right. So those are words to engage. Those are words to support. Those are questions to honor people and support them in the decision-making process. Okay. So again, for the ready right now woman who's confident and ready, has big goals, it's appropriate to dig a little bit deeper with her. It's appropriate to challenge her a little bit more. As opposed to maybe someone who's not really connected in the community. Maybe she's new to the area. Maybe she has a jam-packed schedule and she's hoping she can just make it to the meeting every night. Or maybe her life is in a little bit of financial strain right now. With those people in that situation, I don't think it's appropriate to dig a little bit deeper or push a higher inventory level. Okay. So I'll share my story really quickly about inventory just to make a couple of points. So Tina France recruited me. I'm sure a lot of you know her. She's a top trip sales director and has been for several years. And she's a good friend of mine. And we went to church together when she, back in the day, we don't anymore, but at that time in our lives, we attended church together. And that's when she recruited me. And so she invited me to her business debut, and I was the friend that kind of like chuckled when I saw the invitation in the mail. I was like, "Oh, that's cute! Like Tina started Mary Kay. Like, oh." I mean, I thought it was cute. I kind of had like pity on her. I'm like, "Oh, she must not have nothing, nothing better to do than sell Mary Kay." I kind of felt, sorry for her because she signed up to do Mary Kay, and so I didn't want to go to her debut. Not because I didn't love her, just because I was busy. I was busy and had a lot of life going on. And so, or at least I thought so at that time. I didn't have any kids. So I'm like, what did I think I was so busy with? I'm not sure. So she invites me to her debut. And the only reason I came is because she was so persistent in following up with me and very persuasive about getting me there. I showed up late to her debut. And then I was the girl that was asking all the kind of rude questions, like trying to find the loophole and, trying to challenge her. Her recruiter was doing the business debut, and I was trying to challenge her and kind of like push back a little bit. And I wanted all the tickets. I won the most tickets, so I got a free Time Wise moisturizer for doing that. And okay, so somewhere in between that time, maybe before her debut or after her debut. I think it was after, because at that point I was like kind of a little bit interested because she was layering me really well. And I'm going to share the layering process that she went through with me in another hangout. But she layered me really well. And I started to have an interest in it. And then she told me one time when we were at a church event, sort of just offhandedly, that she had ordered a $600 inventory package. And I was like stunned. I was like, "You what? Like, you did what?" That sounded like $1,000,000 to me at that time. And all I kept thinking is like, $600 in makeup. Like, I didn't understand at all how the business worked, or I didn't understand about inventory, or, just I was just so uneducated about how the Mary Kay business worked. So it just sounded to me like she spent $600 on lipstick, and I thought that was ridiculous. And at that point I was interested in kind of looking into Mary Kay. And I remember having the thought, I'm like, well, if I do ever do this, I'm definitely not, getting the $600 package. I'm not doing that. I'll pay my $100 and see how it goes. Okay. So then, however many weeks later, I decided to get my starter kit. And then I listened to Pam Shaw's Next Steps CD. She now has a new updated version of inventory information. It's on my website at leahlaughlin.com. You can look at it there. It's on the new consultant 12-step page. And so I listened to that. And after I listened to the CD, I was going to order inventory. It was all I needed. It was just, I needed the information. I needed the education. I needed to understand how the business worked. And once I heard that, it was a no-brainer. Like, I didn't even, I thought I'd be crazy to not start with inventory after I heard the information. And so then I wanted a $3,000 package, but the credit card I had at that time had a lower limit. So I ended up getting the $2,400 package. And in my first 5 or 6 months of Mary Kay, I was a very obedient consultant. Like, my director said, jump, and I said, how high? And I just followed the plan and followed the price trail. I liked to win. And so any little challenges or unit promotions that she had going on, like, I would do those. And I kind of thought, like, I didn't think I had to, but I just thought, well, why wouldn't you? And a couple months, I was like the only consultant in the unit who did a power start. And I'm like, what are all these other people doing? I thought we had to do power starts in Mary Kay. So I was just very obedient to the process. And I held my power starts and learned how to do my party and learned all the skills in the beginning. But in that 5 or 6 months, I had no vision beyond making a little extra money. I kind of saw it as a fun challenge. So I liked the challenge of it. And also probably the most motivating part of me getting started is I wanted to prove that it didn't work. And so I was like, I'm going to give this my all, but it probably won't work out. And if it doesn't, then, that's okay with me, because I showed them that this isn't as good of an opportunity as they say it is. I didn't really trust that Mary Kay was the opportunity that they were saying it was. Not that I didn't trust Tina. I just didn't trust the Mary Kay opportunity at that time. And didn't think someone normal like me, just like a normal person, could be that successful with it. And so those 5 or 6 months, I just was obedient, worked the process. But I will tell you, there were many times in that 5 or 6 months that I was tempted to and desired to not really do a whole lot with Mary Kay, and to not really book any more parties, and to not spend time doing it. I was a teacher at that time, and it was in my first year of teaching, so I was very just very involved in trying to get my classroom set up and trying to get everything figured out, and going to all these after school programs and volunteering and trying to get really connected into the school and the community. So I just had a full plate, and Mary Kay was just sometimes kind of this little annoyance on the side. I'm like, oh, Mary Kay, like, gotta make booking calls. I've got a party tonight. Like, I don't want to go to the party. I was also newly married at the time. And so my parties took me away from being home with my husband, my new husband, in the evening. So sometimes it was just annoying to me. But let me share with you why I kept going in those 5 to 6 months where I had no bigger vision. Okay. Because then I went to seminar in 2006, caught a big vision at seminar, and the rest is history. I mean, really, it was seminar was the turning point to move me from kind of this uncommitted consultant with one foot in and one foot out to being like all in, like balls to the wall. I'm going to be a national sales director. It was seminar that helped me to have both hands in, both feet in, hard over the line for what I wanted out of this business opportunity. And so, what kept me in the game in those 5 to 6 months? Inventory. That's what kept me in the game. I made a financial commitment, and it was on a 0% credit card, and I was committed to paying it off. Um, when I kind of told Cliff and asked Cliff, my husband, about inventory, he didn't have a whole lot to say. He wasn't like supportive, but he wasn't discouraging me. And I told him, I'm thinking about putting this on a 0% card. What do you think? And he's like, well, just better pay it off. He's like, I don't want to see it in 6 months and there still be a balance. And he didn't say that in a rude way or a harsh way. He's like, okay, well, if you're going to do it, you better pay it off. And so that was my goal. I'm like, okay, got to pay it off. And if I do nothing else with Mary Kay, like that's going to be a win for me to pay off this inventory investment. And after that, if I keep doing it, great. And if I don't, I wasn't that committed to it, but I was committed to honoring the financial decision I made because I wanted to honor my family and my husband, and I didn't want to balance on a credit card. And so I've often thought, like, man, what if I wouldn't have made that investment? I mean, really, what if I wouldn't have made that? I would not have had that sort of positive pressure to keep going in times when Mary Kay was an annoyance to me. But I kept going because I had this inventory sitting in my tiny little 2-bedroom apartment, like staring at me, and this credit card that I pulled up every week and looked at the balance. And I actually did pay it weekly for the first 6 months. I'll cover that in money management. And so anyways, long story short, I wanted to tell you that story because the point I wanted to make about not bringing sharp, ready right now women in with inventory. And guys, I don't even think I would have been considered a ready right now woman at that time. I wasn't saying like I wanted to make this career. I didn't have any lofty goals with this. I was just trying this thing out, this Mary Kay thing out. And so, you guys, with wisdom and discernment, if you do not bring people in with inventory, you're losing out on some possibly sharp women who they just get busy with their lives. And Mary Kay's a little annoyance to them and they don't have time for it. And if there's no credit card statement and inventory staring at them, why do it? They've got this whole other busy life over here. Okay, so remember that when you're sharing inventory, you guys, and don't back down when you really are discerning that inventory in a star package would benefit your new people. Okay. All right. I spent more time on that than I planned. So let's move on. Okay. Overcoming inventory objections. So I touched on this a little bit with those questions that I shared with you. So let me touch on just a couple big ones. And first of all, you do want to overcome these in whatever video that you do. If you're not doing a video currently and don't have one made, you would want to sort of have like an opening statement about inventory that would include overcoming some of these objections. If you have a video, you want to make sure you overcome some of the most common objections so that they're coming to the welcome orientation call or conversation with you, heard that information. Okay. But you'll still have people have the objection, and that's fine. And so the one that's, I think, really, really challenging and that we all probably get a lot is like, well, I just want to wait and see how it goes. So what do you say to that? What do you say? First thing, and I want you to get this like flow. You want to first ask permission. Okay, well, hey, do you mind if I share a few thoughts on that? Or do you mind if I just offer my professional opinion based on my experience with other people I've observed that have similar goals to you? Okay, so you're just asking permission, whatever that little question or sentence is. And then you're going to offer what is called compassionate feedback. Okay, this is something I learned in DSWA coaching school. This is a section of the coaching curriculum that they present. It's called compassionate feedback. Compassionate feedback is when you, with a sentence or two or three, so you don't want to get too long-winded with this, you guys. I think some of you just talk way too much and it needs to like be cut off. We can all get into that, just that rhythm of like, okay, I'm just going to keep talking because I don't know what else to say. So I'm just going to keep talking. Okay. So in a sentence or two or three, a short paragraph, you want to just give her feedback. And it's called compassionate because you want to come to the table with that attitude. I'm going to give you some compassionate feedback, some feedback that's going to honor you, some feedback that's going to serve you, some feedback that's going to lead you. And then you want to do it in a coach's voice. Okay, so we have two voices as leaders. We have the megaphone voice that's going out to the large groups, that's going out to the unit, and we can kind of shout or raise our voice a little bit to like get people's attention. But then a coach's voice is softer. And it's for one-on-one conversations, and it's soft, and it's warm, and it's gentle. It doesn't have a tone to it that would be abrasive. It doesn't have a preachy tone. It doesn't have a motherly tone. You should do this. It's a coach's voice, soft, gentle, open, warm. Okay, so anytime you overcome objections, that's sort of the process you want to follow. You want to ask permission, then you're going to give some compassionate feedback in a coach's voice. Okay. So here are some thoughts I would share. I would say, you know what, it can be, so do you mind if I share some thoughts on that? It can be challenging in this business to see the real potential of this business opportunity without the products that you're selling. And so just to make a comparison, and this is in my welcome orientation video, so she's probably already heard this, but I'm going to say it again. Just as a comparison, it would kind of be like McDonald's, opening up a franchise and opening up their doors, but then like waiting to see what everyone's going to order that day before they stock the shelves with hamburgers and French fries and whatever. So that'd be crazy. That'd be silly for them to not have the products that they're selling. And so we're similar in that way, where we're a retail business and our sales are directly connected to people being able to get them on the spot and being able to see and experience the real product versus just a sample. And so I know from firsthand experience that starting a new business can be scary. And really, it's going to be scary no matter what you do. If you get inventory, if you don't, like, it's a little scary either way. But I would rather you just be a little scared rather than scared and super frustrated and having to commit more time than you need to because you don't have products on hand. So like, how would you feel to have all the products? Let's say your first party, all your friends come over. How would it feel to have all those products and just be able to hand them to them after they order? And then maybe a closing question would be, are you willing to relook at the information again and reconsider? Okay, so my compassionate feedback was a little long. That was a long paragraph. You might want to shorten that up. But that's truly what I would share with any new consultant. I've said those words a million times, where you ask for permission, you give your feedback and your thoughts and your professional advice, and then you ask her a question to engage her and to get a feel for what she's feeling. And so that's when I come in with the question of, how would it feel to have, all the products for your friends when they come over at your very first party and you're just able to hand them to them on the spot? Like, how would that feel and how exciting would that be? And then another question would be, are you willing to look at the information again and reconsider your decision? Okay, so that would be what I would say to wait and see how it goes. Okay, now another one that we commonly hear is that they don't want debt. Like, I just don't want another credit card. I don't want to go into debt. I don't want more debt. I follow Dave Ramsey, and he really doesn't, encourage credit cards, or I'm on the Dave Ramsey program, and I'm not opening credit cards right now. Okay, so I feel like that's a real common one. So again, ask permission. You're going to give compassionate feedback. in a coach's voice. After your compassionate feedback, you're going to ask a question to re-engage her. Okay. And so you don't want to be too preachy about like debt versus investment, because we know it's an investment. And if you really looked at the definition of investment in debt, like investing in a business is a whole different kind of debt than consumer debt. And there are different types of debt. And when you invest in a business that you get 100% return on, it's not debt that you want to avoid, like you want to avoid consumer debt or a car loan, or like I don't even want to get on that soapbox. So I'm not going to go there because we don't have time. I'm just always fascinated by people willing to buy a new car and a car loan and pay a ridiculous amount of interest, but then they won't invest in, an 1800 star inventory where they could actually make money to pay off that loan faster. So anyways, just one of those things. I don't get it. So yeah, you don't want to be too preachy. You never want to have that tone as a leader or a coach. You don't want to be too motherly. You don't want to micromanage. Okay. So be careful of your tone when you're talking to people, because I think we can sometimes unintentionally treat people like our kids, and try to tell them what to do. And so when you're talking about debt and investment, just assume that she probably knows the difference and don't get too preachy about it. But you do want to make the point that debt is different than investment. And so here, I just tell a quick personal story about this, because I had a hard time with this one too, about spending money before I was making money. I had a hard time with that in the beginning, and had some hesitations with that, with inventory. And not only with inventory, you guys, but there's the business cards, and there's the website, and there's supplies that they need at the store, and then there's product they need to take from their inventory right away that they need at their skincare class that they're not making a profit on. And so that can feel like a burden to some people. And so I would say, well, hey, do you mind if I just share a personal story about when I was getting started? I was pretty overwhelmed by this inventory decision, because one of the reasons I got into Mary Kay was to make more money for our family. And so the thought of spending more money before I had seen a profit really kind of rubbed me the wrong way initially. But I was committed to really understanding how the Mary Kay business worked, and educating myself on how the business worked. And I did spend some time doing that initially, so I could really understand the business plan. And after I did that, it was just obvious to me that inventory on hand was a big part of success in Mary Kay, and a big part of just making your customers happy, and a big part of saving you a lot of time from delivering orders and having to reorder all the time. And so I came to the conclusion when I was a new consultant considering inventory, that if I was going to give this a shot, I wanted to give it the best shot that I could. Like, let me just give this the best shot. I don't know if it's going to work out, but I may as well give it my all. And I knew about the 90% product buyback guarantee, and that just felt like a safety net to me. And so I eventually did decide to invest in inventory, even though initially I hesitated to spend money. I hesitated to add debt. But as I learned more about the business, I really saw it as an investment, not taking on more consumer debt. Whew, my compassionate feedback is a little long-winded, you guys. And so then I would say, well, what if you viewed this? What if you viewed this as an investment that's going to create income for your family versus debt? How does that change your perspective on investing in inventory? Okay. And so then another common one we hear, you guys, is just the husband objecting, or the mom objecting, or whoever that most important person in her life is. If they object, then she's taking on their opinions. And whenever that happens, I just kind of pause right there and say, are they willing to watch the inventory video? And would they be willing to have a phone conversation with me? Or can you bring them to the meeting this week and just help them to hear and learn more about Mary Kay? You know more about it than they do right now. And so would they just be willing to learn more and educate themselves about how the business works? And then maybe see how they feel about the option. So you want to engage the husband, the mom, as much as you possibly can, and getting them to the meeting that week is a great way to do that. So, and then you've got people who want inventory but are financially challenged by making the investment. And so we're going to switch to credit score, you guys, and talk a little bit about credit score because it's important to be well educated about how this impacts their credit and how certain information that they share with you, you need to know what options that opens up to them or what options that closes to them based on what they're telling you. And so you do want to ask personal questions about their money. And remember, guys, I know some of you hesitate to do that and it can feel a little weird, like asking them all these personal questions. But remember your role. Your role as a leader and a mentor is to give her the best information, the best advice, the best shot at being successful with Mary Kay, you guys, and that involves her financial life. And so again, I asked for permission. So let's say she's like, yeah, okay, I want to get inventory. I want to invest. I need a financing option. And so then I'm going to start asking her questions about her financial life. And I'll start with like, well, hey, do you mind if I ask you like a couple personal questions? And I have never had anyone say no to me in my 11 years of Mary Kay. So everyone's like, yeah, sure. I say, well, hey, like, what about your credit score and your credit history? Do you feel like you've got a solid credit score? And then they'll tell you if they do or they don't. Some people don't know, but then you can ask a few more questions like, well, have you had loans open for the past 2 years? You know, how many credit cards do you have? Do you have store cards? Do you have student loans? So you can ask these questions to get a feel for her financial situation. And usually it's pretty easy to tell whether somebody's going to get approved for a credit card or whether they need to start looking for other options or they need to start asking possible friends and family to put them on as an authorized user on the card, okay? And so you don't want to set her up for disappointment, okay? So you don't want to say, yeah, just go try applying for the Chase card on Mary Kay and Touch. Maybe you will get approved. You don't want to say that like if you really know she's probably not. Like if her credit score is close to 650 or below, she's not going to get approved for it because 650 is when it starts to be like fair. I forget how they rate it, but I think it's fair to low. Okay, so anything 650 and below, it's unlikely that she's going to get approved for a credit card, especially the Chase Bank one, the Mary Kay one, because I have found a little bit more challenging to get approved for than maybe even US Bank or Fifth Third Bank. Okay. And so don't set her up for that disappointment, you guys, because some people can go and think, oh, yeah, maybe I've got a shot. And she really doesn't at all. And then she applies and then it's a ding on her credit history. And then she got denied. And a lot of times that kind of rejection or that perceived rejection is enough for her to be like, oh, I don't know what I'm going to do with this. Okay. So I don't send people to that Chase Bank application unless I am like 100% sure she's going to get approved. If I'm a little bit unsure, then she's probably not going to be, and we're going to explore other options, okay? And so just some details about credit, because you want to be, like if you're not really sure the best advice to give her, you guys, that alone can take any hesitations she has about investing and just magnify them. If she's sensing that you're hesitant and that you don't really know, and you don't know the best option for her, then she feels really lost because this is new to her too. And you're supposed to be the professional and the advisor and the mentor. And so we've got to know, you guys, we've got to know this stuff. We've got to know a little bit about credit, about the options out there, about what impacts her credit. And so the three credit agencies are Experian, Equinox, and TransUnion. And so you can, whenever you inquire about your credit score, each of those will give you a score, and they're always a little bit different, but usually within the same ballpark because they have different ways that they measure that. And there's a lot of different variables. And so creditkarma.com is the best place to go. And I would have that as maybe the first step, unless somebody's like, boom, I know what I'm going to do, or I already have the funds, or I already have the credit card, or I know I'm going to get approved. Unless it's just super easy like that, then creditkarma.com would be a good first next step, because it's going to tell her credit score. without having I think it's like a soft inquiry versus a hard inquiry on her credit. So it's not going to negatively affect her credit to inquire about it through creditkarma.com. Credit ranges from 300 to 850, and 650 and below is in kind of the red zone, and 650 and above is really good. And things that affect credit are payment history. So if there's a missed payment on anything that she owes on, even store credit cards, if there's any kind of missed payment, medical bills, that shows up on your credit when it's sent to collections. The amount owed versus the available credit. So if you've got a credit card that you have 10,000 available and it has a balance of 2,000, that's good because it's showing them that you've got all this money available, but you're not maxing it out. You're not using everything. Okay, so that's a good thing. If you've got a $10,000 limit and it's at 9,500, it's showing that you're maxing out your credit on a very large balance. And that large balance on not a lot of available can negatively impact your credit. But then let's say you have a large balance, on a $30,000 limit or a $50,000 limit, then that impacts it. That's not as negative. Okay. The length of credit history, I believe it's 2 years that they look at. That they would want to have you have at least 2 years of credit history to be considered established in your credit history, and anything less than that, you just don't have a lot of history and a lot of data yet. Number of inquiries for your credit can negatively impact your credit score. So like if she applies for 5 different credit cards all in a row, that can be a negative thing. And that's why we really want to lead her to the right one for her that she's most likely going to be approved for, rather than her just like grabbing at the wind, picking any credit card that, she Googles and that pops up. Okay. And what creditkarma.com does is once you enter your information, it makes suggestions based on their credit score, what some good options might be for that person. And then other things that affect credit are types of credit used, and it's a positive impact on your credit score if you have, a car loan and a mortgage and a credit card and just multiple, like a more vast portfolio of credit. And then also, of course, things that are in collections, unpaid medical bills, bankruptcy, of course, all of those things are going to negatively impact your credit. If somebody tells you they have bankruptcy, they're not going to get approved for anything. There's a long period of time that has to happen for them to repair that damage that was done. And so they would need to start looking into other options, like talking to friends and family. Possibly selling something in their house, possibly using a tax return. So they would have to get a little bit more creative. Banks are now, instead of co-signing, they're turning towards authorized user. And so let's say she doesn't have good credit, but her husband does. Her husband can apply for the card and then put her as an authorized user. So she has a card with her name on it. But then he would be the one that is responsible for the balance. And it's impacting his credit, not hers. I'm pretty sure about that. I'm like 99% sure that an authorized user's credit is not impacted by being an authorized user. I would need to double check that, but I'm pretty sure. Other options, you guys, are just to go to her bank. She's got history with her bank and a relationship started already, and she's also a customer. And so if they can sell another product to her, they're going to be wanting and happy to do that. So she may have a little more options and choices through her bank. And then loans. You guys, loans are an awesome option that, although you don't get approved on the spot like sometimes you do with a 0% card, and also loans usually carry an interest rate with them, and so they're most of the time not 0% like a credit card would be, but they're also more stable and they have more it's a more positive impact on your credit. Credit cards are revolving credit. Like you can keep adding to the balance and keep using it. Whereas a loan is more, there's more security with it. And it, like I said, has a more positive impact on your credit score because you take out the loan and then that's it. You don't have any more spending power unless you were to take out another loan. Whereas a credit card, like you can keep spending and spending and spending, and there's less security with that. Credit unions also, I've belonged to a credit union for years and years and years, and often go to them for whatever financial needs that we have because unlike a for-profit bank, they're usually for the consumer. And they're just known to be easier to work with. They're more lenient in who they approve. There's usually not the hidden fees like there can be at larger banks. They usually have lower interest rates on loans. It's easier to build a relationship with someone who works at your local credit union. And so that's another really great option. But regardless of what she does, make sure she has the best game plan for her. And if you're really uncertain about that, you guys, it just magnifies her uncertainties and blows them up. Okay, so we got to be clear about what the options are. In my 12-step program, there is a 1-page document that has financing options that are available to her with just some details about how she can apply for those. Okay. And then another thing I want to encourage you guys to do is take ownership of having options for people. When I was a top director, my very first year, I built this relationship with a referral that Julia, my director, gave me, who was my senior director at that time. His name was Scott Talley. I should look him up. I owe Scott Talley like big time. You guys, if it wasn't for Scott Talley at Fifth Third Bank, I don't know if we would have earned the trip that year. You guys, I could call his personal direct line and say, I've got this girl, this girl, this girl applying for credit cards. We need them by tomorrow. What can you do for me? And he was so happy to help, and he would expedite things and push things through fast. And he wanted to see us win. And of course, it's a benefit to him to have new customers using the bank's credit cards. And so, I mean, Scott Talley, you guys, I don't know what I would have done without him. He eventually left Fifth Third. And so I tell you that story just to make the point that having personal relationships with banking institutions, ideally in your local community, will serve you so well. And go in there, you guys, take the time, invest the time, go in there and talk to a manager and share with them what we need. I mean, we need things fast. We need to get the card number right away before the card comes in the mail. We need to be able to talk to someone live and personally. We need to have a smooth application process that can happen right away. We need to be able to have authorized users apply. You just list to them what we need and ask them if they can fulfill that need, and then build a relationship with that person. They're going to be happy to meet you because you're going to be feeding them customers. And then you're going to be happy to build a relationship with them because they're going to be supporting your unit and getting some of the best financing options that they can. And to get quick financing options, we need to move fast because we've got deadlines. And so what are some local banking institutes, some local credit unions that you could visit in the next week or two and start building that relationship? You guys, I wouldn't have earned trips if it wasn't for that. I'm serious. There are some years I don't think we would have finished if I wouldn't have had that personal relationship and connection with some key people who were a significant part of our new people having funds available for their inventory orders. Okay, you guys, so let's move on. Let's move on. We don't have a whole lot of time left, but we're going to try to cram in what we can do. I want to talk about new consultant training and Pink Boot Camp. This will greatly impact attraction to you and closing the back door versus attrition and opening up the back door wide open with people exiting. Okay. And we want to attract and keep that back door closed, and we want to keep people with us. And new consultant training is a beautiful way to do that and to build a relationship with someone and to equip your new people to go out and be successful. And so here's something that happened after I debuted as a national sales director. There was this group of directors and a group of consultants in my unit who were just really successful, like at the basic skills. And some of them moved up to be directors and some of them didn't. Most of them are still in my unit, and some of them not doing a whole lot with Mary Kay, but they just have a customer base that they serve and they love their Mary Kay and they love just being hobby level, and they're just good. They're good at being a Mary Kay consultant, whether that's at the director level or just a hobby level consultant selling to a few friends and family. And I'm like, what's with that group of people? Because it's people who went through my unit kind of all at the same time. I'm like, what is with that group? And I finally made the connection. You guys, and the connection is that they moved through my unit during a season in my directorship that I was a beast about new consultant training and crazy intentional, like I had never been before at training, equipping, following up, building relationships, and inspecting what I expected with my new people. It was just this season. And what it produced were offspring sales directors that supported our national area and debuting when we did. And it also produced this large crop of consultants in my unit who are still with me today and love their Mary Kay and have a good, decent sized customer base. And so I made that connection between those groups of people and the type of education that was offered when they were new consultants in my unit. Okay, so this is a big one, is new consultant training. So what is your current plan for new consultant training or pink boot camp or whatever you choose to call it? Because it so greatly impacts keeping people with you and closing that back door. And so you guys, I have done it all kinds of different ways. I mean, any way you can do new consultant training, I have done it and I have tried it. And there's the pros and cons to every way to do it. So very early on, I did it once a month for 4 hours on a Sunday afternoon. I've done it before my meeting for an hour, before my weekly meeting starts. I've done it after my meeting. I've done it on Saturdays for an hour after my muffins and makeovers. I've done it, and so every Saturday, I've done it for 2 Saturdays a month for 2 hours after muffins and makeovers or before muffins and makeovers. Okay, so there's like a multitude of ways to do this. The point I want to make is it doesn't matter how you do it, make it work for your schedule, just make sure you do it. And I know sometimes that leaders will wait until they have a crop of new consultants to book a new consultant training. But you guys, I think that messes with you subconsciously, that it impacts your recruiting, that if you don't have something planned for your new people the moment they come in, like here's our calendar, can you come to new consultant training tomorrow? When you don't have that, you don't feel equipped as a leader. And you may not be conscious that you don't feel equipped as a leader. It might be a subconscious thought. But when you're not ready to hand a calendar to somebody with all your events, including training on it, the moment she signs up, there's something in you that's holding back a little bit on recruiting her because you don't know what to do with her when she's in. You don't know how to equip her. When there's that uncertainty, we're not as likely to say, hey, come with me, join my movement, join what's going on in our unit because look what we're doing. This is really fun. You want to be a part of this. When you don't have that sense about you, it can negatively impact recruiting. Okay, so you want to offer it. There have been times I have showed up before muffins and makeovers on a Saturday morning and nobody was there. That's okay. Build it and they will come. Okay, build it and they will come. You've got to offer it and it's got to be consistent. And this is one of those things, you guys, that I think really should be live. And I know technology is awesome. You know, it's connecting all of us right now, all over the United States, and a lot of us. And we're not together face-to-face in person, although I think that would be more effective. And so technology has its role, and I love using it. But this is one of those things, new consultant training, that I would have a live version of it for your local people, and possibly even travel for the live version of new consultant training. And then you have the CDs and the videos as supplement, but not a replacement of live face-to-face training with your new people. It is one of the sweetest times to build a relationship with your new people because they're new and they're fresh and they're excited. They haven't experienced disappointment yet. They're hungry to learn. They're still listening to you. After 6 or 8 weeks, they've kind of got it figured out and they're on their own way. So they're still in a time frame in their business where they're hanging on your every word and they're just hungry. And so take the time to be in front of them face to face and eyeball to eyeball. So very early on, I would do it live and then give them CDs. And the CDs would be, initially they were of another director, but I'm like, I want them to be of me. And so I recorded my own CDs, and then now I have my own videos. And those are the supplement, because repetition is important too. So you want her to have something she can go back to again and again and again to hear the information again and again and again. And so you guys, it's 2:00 Eastern Standard Time, and I'm not done, but we are done. And so I'm making a note of what we did not finish, and we'll catch up next week, you guys. So, all right, I love you. I hope you're having a great week. Keep me posted in our Facebook group about how things are going, and I will see you next Tuesday.